Whether your beer is in a bottle, can, or glass, kick back and relax. It's Better on Draft.
And we are live, episode number 242, Better on Draft podcast. My name is Ken, and I welcome you to the show. Another great show, another great brewery, another great guest. We are excited. I kind of want to go into it real quick, but I want to kind of go over what I'm drinking, which, real quick, I have got the semi-dry hard cider and the swizzle, both from a brewery called Cidergeist, or maybe Rhinegeist, as you've heard, who is actually our guest in our studio today. Bryant, how are you doing today? And welcome. Why don't you introduce yourself and real quick tell us what you do with Rhinegeist?
Sure. Bryant Goulding. I am one of the co-founders at Rhinegeist. My operational title is VP of Sales and Marketing. So I was our first sales guy, and now I lead innovation and creative around mostly marketing, and I've got a hand in culture and guiding efforts into the future.
Now, I know prior to Rhinegeist, you were at another major brewery. Why don't you tell us what you used to do over there and kind of how the transition went from working at that brewery to deciding to start your own?
Cool. I'm going to start earlier than that. I started homebrewing in college at the University of Connecticut because it was an outlet and a cool way to learn about this thing that I loved, which was beer, and learned how to homebrew, wrote my thesis on the economics and evolution of the craft beer industry. And I thought it was a really intriguing industry where it's very meritocratic, and there was a lot of great personalities making great products that were not widely adopted. So it had levels of intrigue that were awesome. I graduated with a degree in economics, went out, worked for Accenture, started consulting, moved out to San Francisco, met a woman on a plane, ended up out there. And after 2 or 3 years, I started working for a company called Fair Isaac, another consulting firm, doing some marketing analytics research, where I actually met my business partner that I opened Rhinegeist with. And we were really disenfranchised with the corporate world. You would hand over projects that you worked months and months on, and nobody would do anything with them. And we were talking about our passion projects. His was coffee, which he ended up opening up a string of coffee restaurants in Cincinnati and roasteries. And mine was beer. And I was volunteering for beer festivals and just getting to know the people in the industry. And by and large, people were great people that were passionate about what they did. And beer itself was evolving at such a rapid rate. It was really fun to stay abreast of. So I quit my job, went to South America for a little while, learned to speak a little bit of Spanish, and came back and got a job with Anderson Valley Brewing up in Boonville, California. I was based out of San Francisco, and I was driving up into Napa, Sonoma Lake, and Mendocino County, so selling beer and wine country, which was a really cool opportunity. I worked there for about 9 months, and there was a job for Dogfish Head available with West Coast regional sales manager. So I jumped at the chance for that. And I grew up in Connecticut and New England and watched Dogfish Head grow from nothing into something really significant. And I had done some part-time work, popping up a little shop in package stores in Connecticut and sampling people on Dogfish beers. And if they were coming in for wine, I would describe how the hop profile of 60 Minute was similar to a Sauvignon Blanc, if you like that. And I thought that, Sam's branding and creative approach would be really fun to represent and sell on the West Coast, because I was an East Coast kid out there, and ended up getting that job working for Adam Lambert, who's now moved on. I think he's in Michigan.
He's at Dark Horse. We had him on back in February, right before COVID hit. So he had just joined Dark Horse, and the Dark Horse Roke, I don't know, they have a combined name for the two breweries, the collective. But yeah, go check out that episode. But continue.
Yeah, working for Adam. We had 8 sales reps across the country for Dogfish Head at that time. I managed 5 states, and was just doing simulcast events with Randall the Enamel Animal, putting that crazy water filter together with all sorts of crazy ingredients, simultaneous with other people across the country in different time zones. I remember being in the tornado and the thing's leaking because I chose to put some sort of wood in Burton baton, and the wood clogged the filter seal, so it's leaking all over the bar, which is an expensive proposition and really challenging. And I'm sweating because the clock is ticking and people are showing up for this event. And so I got to represent Dogfish Head doing a whole lot of different things, managing their sales planning across 18 wholesalers in 5 states, from Washington, Oregon, Arizona, Nevada, and California. So I was on the road quite a bit. I love the beers. I had 3 beers to sell when I started: Midas Touch, Palo Santo Marron, and 90 Minute IPA. So pretty high octane brews. And when I was hired there, they said, listen, we've got all the creative and innovation ideas, and Sam does that. We don't need that out of you. We don't need to know that black IPAs are really hot in Oregon and we think we should do one. Just like stick to the sales mechanics and do that. And I love that job. It was a lot of fun, and I got to learn the mechanics of the industry working closely with Adam, and for a brand that I grew up loving and felt like it made a seismic impact on how people learned about beer. And just working for Sam, he's just a true blue, amazing guy that cares a lot about his company, cares a lot about the quality of his product. And it was a great place to learn and work. I started thinking about what's next, because there's only a few VP of sales jobs, and that was the trajectory I seemed to be on. And I really love the creative side. So getting points of distribution and selling and closing the deal were aspects of the job that I enjoyed, but I wasn't passionate about. And I was passionate about the beer. When we would have sales meetings, I would go and brew with the brewmaster at their Hobith pub, because I was intrigued about what goes into a 120-minute IPA and how do we make these brilliant beers. And I was late to a sales meeting one time and I got chastised. I don't pay you to brew beer, I pay you to sell beer. And yet for me, it was part and parcel. I can sell what I love, and I love the beer. So when my business partner, Bob, who had moved to Cincinnati and opened up coffee shops and coffee roasteries, kind of ahead of its time in 2007 and 8, right when people were cutting coffee out of their budgets, he said, there's all of this craft beer here, but very little of it's made in Cincinnati. There was less than 10 breweries in Cincinnati, and yet there was this amazing brewing culture. So I quit at Dogfish Head and said, I came out to visit, checked out Cincinnati. It rubbed me the right way. It's an amazing little town, little city with great architecture and great brewing heritage. And I jumped for the time that we were putting the project together to go to Golden Road, which was in its 4th month of operating and needed a sales director. And I went down there and launched 7 wholesalers in Southern California. And they were trying to basically shoot the moon, which I didn't really know before I got there. But they were trying to get as much distribution as possible and working with AB wholesalers, be LA's brewery, brazenly with gusto. And my methodology was a little bit more meet one person at a time, win them over with the quality of your product, get to know them, find your place, and earn respect over time. And it was a little bit of an aggressive style for me, which was a good challenge. And 6 months there, which was my plan, I moved to Cincinnati, started sleeping on my business partner's couch, meeting people in Cincinnati, telling them we're going to brew this brewery someday, and started looking for places. I had made contact with a used brew house that was available down in Tecate, Mexico. We built our business plan around that, started pitching investors, and shipped it out as a 20-barrel brew house and started to get Rhinegeist going.
Wow. All right. So I'm sure there's a lot of questions that already got answered in that, but that was a great kind of introduction to you for sure. We do have some co-hosts I want to bring in. We usually bring them in one at a time. Dan, how you doing over there?
Hey, doing pretty good. How are you?
Are you still drinking vodka or?
I do have some vodka with me. Haven't taken a sip on it yet, but I also have an Underground Mountain Brown from Founders here as well. I'm working on.
Don't tell Rob that you're drinking Founders.
Oh well.
Why don't you go in with the next question?
Absolutely. First off, I got to say Golden Road. That has to be one of my favorite breweries out this way. Ken will know that. Get up off of that brown from our time at a certain show in Vegas, I think 2 years ago. So that's awesome to hear you work there. My question is, I've been reading about this rare beer festival you guys had. Kind of piqued my curiosity because I was looking at the list from last year and seeing some of the beers. What was your favorite beer there, and why was it? Because there's quite a few heavy hitters on there that people would love to get their hands on.
That's a hard question because Rare Beer Fest, the foundation of Rare Beer Fest is basically we work in this amazing industry where there's mutual respect. We all make great beer, we share it, and sometimes you can't get that beer. And yet we've made these great relationships. Maybe once a year we can go through the effort to register, ship, and we ship clusters from around the country, beers that are not available in Ohio. And we ship them all in, coordinate 2 rounds of a festival. So it's like a kind of a mini GABF for beers that are not available. And then really rare beers from breweries that are local. So there's a local component. I honestly, it's such a whirlwind in terms of putting it on. And I'm kind of a host with my head spinning. I don't remember the first event that we had was called Hopgeist, and that was all IPAs or Imperial IPAs. And we had something like 60 the first year and then 100 the next year. And it was an irresponsible structure of an event because you can't drink that many Imperial IPAs. And we quickly learned, I tried all of them that year.
Oh no.
Very small amounts, but I really, it was a chance to try IPAs next to each other that you never get to. And we moved to Rare Beer Fest where it was a variety of beers, and trying to think this
let's tie on to that real quick, and I'll softball the question a little bit easier for you, so you don't have to pick a favorite. But what about a flavor or a profile that you kind of read and you're like, why would that work? And then you drank it and you're like, holy shit, that works.
Man, after this year, a year ago, it feels like 10.
It's so true.
We had Lost Abbey out. I think they had a raspberry beer that I'm not remembering what it was, but it knocked my socks off. It might be Framboise or Amorosa or something, or is that a Russian River beer?
That's why we keep a list of everything, so you can go back and check it the next time you're like, oh, I remember that raspberry beer, and I can go, check that list of the beers we had. But I want to bring in. Oh, go on.
2 years ago, we had Other Half come out, and the keg blew before I could get upstairs to try it. So it's one of those things where we're rotating through, and it's a madness. It's not less about the beer, but for me, it's more about, like, we have all the brewers come in and we talk to them and we hang out the night before and we have kind of serve them dinner. So it's a much more, for me personally, hosting than it is a beer focus, similar to GABF, because beer is all about the people for me. I love the stuff one at a time, but that's not what I guess I remember.
I think that's why I love the first hour or so of all the Michigan festivals, because I get a chance to go see all the people and all the people that we've gotten to meet throughout the past few years. But Nick, how are you, and what are you drinking over there?
It's Friday, thank goodness, and it's been a long week. So when I'm drinking 2 Roke beers. One is Nick's Dad beer. This one is made for all the messes made. Yes, the label got ripped off. I can thank my wife for that. I think it's blow your face off. I think that's what I'm thinking.
All right.
And then the other one is, this one is for all the 3 a.m. feedings. Another one. I think this one's Double Dog Stout.
Oh, that was your beer stuff. That's right. I understand what you're saying. I was like, what are you talking about?
So just quick backstory. That's the beer that she took out of my collection. My wife took the labels off and got printed labels to let me know that she was pregnant as a surprise.
So why don't you throw off your question to Brian over here?
So you had mentioned beers about the people, and I'm looking at your website. I'm getting 2 different vibes for it. There's a corporate vibe a little bit to it. You had mentioned you work for Accenture. It just feels like a corporate website for whatever reason. I don't know if that was by mistake, by design. I don't know. But then when you start going into the people that work for Rhinegeist, all the different sections, how many people are actually working for Rhinegeist? And even as we kind of walk through COVID together, is that number kind of holding the same?
Yeah. Can I ask what you mean by corporate first?
Well, you said you work for Accenture, right? So I just get this there. So one thing that kind of jumped out to me was the story ethos. You don't see a lot of those on brewery websites, I feel.
So I think you say corporate, and I'm like in defensive mode immediately.
No, go for it. Defend away.
A website's such a critical. It's like the front of your business these days with so much time spent on digital. We did an overhaul 2 years ago, and we wanted to make clear how much we cared about culture and how much we cared about people. That's why our team is on there, and that's why we have that ethos. Like we have it started out with the two of us and then five of us when we got the brewery open. A brewer, an assistant brewer, Bob to GC the project and make sure we didn't run out of money. I was selling the beer and Dennis was delivering the beer, and there was five of us, and we grew to 300 at this point. That was all the opposite of dictatorial and very entrepreneurial. And we had this management style that holds up to this day, where you wouldn't ask someone to do something you wouldn't do yourself. Mm-hmm. And we were doing it ourselves. I was our bar back. I lifted a lot of kegs, and I'm a skinny guy. I'm not really built to do that. And it was just a necessity. And there's an energy that comes with working for someone that believes in what the collective is doing as much as you do. And so working for bigger firms where I was employee number 42,964 or whatever.
Yep.
And there's a really charismatic CEO. So once a year you get to tune in and like go rah rah for the company, and they can invest a lot for happy hours to keep you nice and boozed up and happy, right? And you're a young kid and you don't know any better, and this is the business world. But to be working on projects like major companies like Chevron, and to feel like this is the pinnacle of business as far as I was concerned, naively, and yet people are kind of going through the motions and aren't really passionate about it. So when we put the brewery together, we wanted to make sure that we didn't lose. This wasn't a money play and this wasn't a growth play. Growth is fun when you're working with people you respect and you're adding people in, and you're a guy that left landscaping and started delivering kegs. Our second delivery driver is now managing. He moved up to Columbus to start our self-distribution team up there. He's now managing all of distribution and all of warehousing for all of Rhinegeist, which is somewhere around 100 people. And to watch that evolution and to have that hands-off approach where we're really intentional about what the vision is, and then really intentional about kind of getting out of the way of it. It's all hands on deck sort of approach. And I think that ethos and that culture is a major differentiator. Mm-hmm. Golden Road is owned by Anheuser-Busch. I'm sure you guys know that. That culture is a different culture. I don't know it intimately, but I can tell you that we believe that our culture of 300, where we're moving towards an ESOP next year, and where we look each other in the eyes, we want to engage and respect each other. And ground up, we're not very hierarchical, and we're asking for people's ideas. We want your ideas. We have innovation at Rhinegeist.com. Don't bombard me with emails, but for basically employees to send ideas, because we're better if we're critiqued. We had a town hall 2 weeks ago where Bob and I opened it up to employees, and they throw hard questions at us. COVID has been particularly challenging for everyone. But now is a time where, we show up and we make sure that we're doing the right thing for our employees. So I think that's why I'm glad that comes across in our website. Beer is the wrong place to be if you just want to make money.
Yeah.
There's an authenticity, and there's a staying power to the brands that we all know and respect. You've had some of them on this show. And I think, Sierra Nevada and New Glarus, and there's so many, and yet there's 10,000 breweries. And so to have that staying power and that persistence and that je ne sais quoi that is something special, I think it comes from people out there representing your brand and loving the place that they work. Because one person has, 100 people in their life. So our 300 people, 30,000 people that they interact with on a regular basis, that know how much they feel respected and cared about and supported at Rhinegeist, I hope. And we do a survey each year to measure whether that's real or not. And we do brainstorming sessions for good ideas on how we get more parking, because it's hard to park in our part of the neighborhood. I'm not sure. I may not answer the questions, but
I think this is going to be a fun night. That's what I'm going to.
Well, now that you're his least favorite host, Nick, I'm going to bring it over to Wendy. And Wendy,
that wasn't the intent, Ken. By the way, it was a weird question, but it's like, you know what? There's something about this. I'm just going to go for it. So.
What are you drinking over there, Wendy?
I have an Elk Brewing PB and J Lee. One of my favorite beers. I never thought I would like peanut butter and jelly beer, but They do it right, man. I love it.
Don't tell my
Um,
wife that you have that beer because she loves it.
oh, I can hardly find it over here. So when I see a 6-pack hiding, and I think somebody hid it in the cooler because I found it. So they're gonna be bummed when they get there later on. Um, so you talked a lot about your culture and the people and what you like about this industry. One of the things that I want to talk to you about is your charitable suds program. So I'm a volunteer by nature, so I always um, find it refreshing when I see businesses that are trying to give back to the communities that they're in. So I'd like you to tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, we have a program called Charitable Suds that each Wednesday, one aspect of it, we have the pillars that we want to give back to, which is disenfranchised, early education, and a smorgasbord of applications come in each year that we only have 52 Wednesdays in the year. So we sift through those and try and uh, choose the ones that either we've worked with before and have worked really well, or are making the types of impact that we want to make. And it's something like 25% we actually get to work with. And we're actually talking about revamping it this year in a more novel, sort of gamified way. But each Wednesday, we every pint that's sold, somebody from the charity comes in and sets up shop so that they can talk to people, let people know, give out brochures, and they're there. We've paused this in COVID, unfortunately, because everything's paused. But each dollar from each pint goes to the charity. So if they bring more people in and it's busy, things work really well. We have a wiffle ball league that has contributed to people coming in to watch the indoor wiffle ball league that we have. We happen to have a 25,000 square foot tap room with 40-foot ceilings. And
I love your facility. It's amazing.
we love playing wiffle ball. So that's part of the program. And then another part is basically out there in the field where we have relationships and communities, we want to do the same thing. So with the same pillars as guidance, we try and connect with other engaging organizations and put together a creative event so that we can do that, not just in our building, but outside. And we're talking, I think we're going to go in the direction of having 4 that are available year round, month long. And people can kind of also opt in to vote, not just Wednesdays, but they can opt in anytime. So if you're at the brewery on a Saturday, you see all 4 of the charitable suds for that month, and then you can kind of vote or donate outside of those Wednesday windows. So that allows way more upside than just you have to be there on Wednesday to buy the pint to give the donation. So looking for ways to expand that impact. And we also think that breweries are gathering places and they're communities, partners. We're in a diverse but challenged community of over the Rhine in downtown Cincinnati. And we want to give back to the people that live there. And that's a way that we can do that with some of the charities we've done. Tutoring, a group of us has gone to Rothenburg school in the neighborhood and tutored kids, which is one of the most hilarious and satisfying things you can do. We've done neighborhood cleanups and those natural things, but charitable suds is something that we care a lot about. And it's, people are more likely to drink your beer when they know you're doing good things for the community, and it's just the right thing to do. Like, we have a great job and place in life. We get to brew beer and sell beer and talk about beer all day long for a living. It's a sport. It feels really fun, but it is a job. And to do good with that, it is just something that feels right.
Speaking of fun, one of the events that I see on the website is the circus at the tap room. That sounds like a lot of fun.
We have done Rhinegeist in the past. Obviously, all bets are off with what goes on in the future. We haven't done an event since March,
Right.
or even before that. But yeah, we had a, not a brontosaurus. I'm gonna mess this up, but something similar, skeleton, a dinosaur in the tap room, and in tandem with the Cincinnati Museum, which was going to put it up in their museum, but they were doing a big overhaul, so they didn't have space for it. So we're creative with the use of space. Basically, I don't think we reached out to the Guinness Book of World Records. They wouldn't give us a record for this, but biggest dinosaur on display in a brewery ever. But we do think that is a record.
I don't know how many of you other guys have, if any of you have been to the brewery, But it's a gigantic space. And for those of you who have been to City Club, when I walked in there, it totally reminded me of my younger days over there at the Ramada.
Oh,
Oh my
geez,
gosh.
City Club.
City Club. Ooh,
Uh,
when
Yeah,
is-
you have to walk up the stairs and there's writing and stickers, and it was a lot of fun.
def.
is it all painted black? No.
I don't remember that, but it did have the same feeling. It's not quite the same feeling, but it was the same. Maybe it was the
it was
excitement of
trending in that
going to a new
direction.
brewery that I was feeling, but
The stairs are painted black.
okay.
Yeah. Well, this the place we're talking about is like everything.
black.
It's all black.
Now, usually when I go and I go and I buy beer, I go to Zatuna Liquor over in Rochester Hills, just south of M59 on Rochester Road. Go check them out. It's a plug, by the way. Do plenty of those here, but I wound up going to Marino's in Sylvania today, and my goal was to buy a handful of beers there, and I sure as shit walked out with $200 worth of singles, including a 6-pack of Old Style, a 12-pack of Gumball Head, and a 24, if you guys are watching the video, pack of Black and Tan cans. So I am a happy man. But we are so rude, Bryant. What are you drinking?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm drinking the third variation of our Cloud Harvest, which is a juicy unfiltered IPA series that rotates through hops. This one is Majorca and 6.5% oats and wheat in the mash bill, and Citra, Mosaic, Cascade, Mandarina, Bavaria, and Hull Malone are in the hop bill. So we're enjoying this. They rotate about 3 times a year, and the hop bill is a little bit different each time, and this is a fun one.
All right. Well, our last host to introduce, Robert, how are you?
Doing all right, man. I got myself actually doing 2 here. The mint condition from Bottle Logic, basically the mint chocolate chip ice cream kind of beer. And also from Ferndale Project, where I picked up dinner tonight, the caramel apple pie sour, which is actually pretty interesting. I'm really enjoying it right now. But I guess we'll go ahead and start with my question here is that I saw that you are you self-diagnosed yourself with ADHD, and you said that you can't brew day to day, but have you brewed at your Rhinegeist facility, or do you just now leave that all up to the staff?
Yeah.
Any time for like brewing something there?
Yeah, I have brewed. I brewed on my birthday every year until this year, actually. It's a fun day to slow it down, get out of the digital hamster wheel and just be present for the flow of liquid and grain and sweat a little bit and work with your hands and tune into what beers would be. I brewed the first 0 IBU beer that we didn't put any bittering hops in. It was a red IPA, which Cara Red was this new malt to come out. And I like to push the envelope and see what we can learn. So yes, I've brewed it. I enjoy it. It's very zen for someone that's like pretty aggressively active and energized and always kind of a go-getting. Not that brewers aren't doing the same. It's a lot to keep track of, but when you're brewing on, we have 3 brew houses. We have an 8.5 barrel innovation brew house at our Spring Grove facility that we built 2 years ago that all our innovation brews come out of. We have a 20 barrel brew house, the original one that I mentioned, that's a JV Northwest and is our, we actually rarely brew on it besides big burly brews for the most part. And then we have our 60 barrel Braucon, which most of the meat and potatoes core beers come out of. So I've been brewing on the JV Northwest. That's the brew house that I went down and hand labeled all the different parts, and we threw it on a flatbed truck and shipped it back. And I met Yuri and bought him breakfast because he delivered the brewery in one piece and from Mexico, which was just boggled my mind at the time. And yes, so yeah, I brew enough to be dangerous, I guess.
Okay. And I guess speaking of your brew staff, I was like looking on the website, and I'm not used to seeing so large of a brew team especially from the independent brewers that we talk to. And looking on there, that it was a brew team of, it looked like about 14 members. Obviously you have the 3 sites, but I think sometimes, like some of us, we kind of get in our heads that there's that saying of too many cooks spoil the broth, but it doesn't look like that's kind of that. There's that case that's there. So I guess just kind of talk to us about your brew team and how they function. Because like I said, I'm at least for myself, I'm not used to so many brewers in one brewery making all this beer and there not be some conflict or something like people stepping on toes.
It's brewing is this awesome relay race where one shift to the next hands over things in process and problems. So there has to be high levels of communication and trust throughout the team. Otherwise, things go the opposite direction real quick. Um, yeah, Austin and Peter manned the brew house at Spring Grove, the Innovation Brew House. Peter was a brewer in the main brewery for a long time and graduated over there, where all of our innovation, we'll brew 4 or 5 different batches before beer gets scaled up to be launched in package. And that's where all that happens. And then the rest, Nick manages our brew team. He was an environmental engineer that was like walking big power plants, tracing back piping, and got sick of that as a job and walked in one day and was just kind of like watching his buddy work on the canning line. And next thing we know, he's like teaching us how to burp out the foam in the lines back when we had a cask 5 head, when we were just like, didn't really know what we were doing. And his engineering savvy came in handy, and he's got a real great way of managing people. And if you're running a brewery, it's always breaking. And so to have the stomach to be able to keep morale high and have people heard and problem solve on the fly when you're holding hot work from on one direction and another, and also trying to free up a jammed valve in the calandria, it's scary stuff. So once again, they all work pretty well together. And to the creative outlet, if they were all barking about what they wanted to do, and we create an outlet for that where and this has been derailed a little bit because we just don't sell a lot of draft beer right now, especially not the more esoteric stuff. Right. But we have a brewers series that we do, so an innovation batch every quarter. The brewers get to throw their ideas and we vote on them in our production meeting. So each quarter there's a brewer that brews their specific beer, and they're really proud about that, and they're kind of competitive. So we try and create a structure where, you know, the beers that we're brewing, there's not a lot of leeway for how you brew them. If something needs to be optimized, we work on that, and then we try and communicate. And it's like that relay race where everything that's in situ needs to be clearly described. We're always installing new things. We're installing a decanter right now, which is a version of a centrifuge that basically pulls out more solids and gives less hop bite in the final beer and more efficiency. But it's anytime you install something new into the process that you already had, it's usually a succession of other problems up and downstream. And so we're engineering our way out of those installs. And it's a heroic effort being a brewer. We can't air condition that whole side of the building. It's cost prohibitive. So they're wet, they're sweating, they're working hard in hot weather, and they do a great job. So we try and treat them as well as we can, but they're a great team.
Right. It sounds like they're getting it done. Now, I have yet to visit Rhinegeist just yet. I'm a little jealous of Wendy right now. But really, I don't have a good excuse because my in-laws live just over the border in Independence. And I have certainly made some trips to the Party Source, which has been definitely one of my favorite stops, heading, there and back. But for someone who is walking into the tap room, other than your beer, obviously, what is it about your location, your locale, that you want, like the first time someone is visiting your tap room, what is something about your location that you want them to keep in their memories?
Well, I think one thing that we don't have control over is the brewery is a 120,000 square foot building, brick building, 40-foot ceilings in the main tasting room area and skylights, that was built as a packaging hall for Christian Moorlines Brewery when they were selling 300,000 barrels a year, which is just an incredible amount. There weren't that many people in Cincinnati at the time. So when you come in from the street, you walk up 2 sets of stairs and you step into this big atrium space. And I just watch people's eyes go wide and they do this little curtsy like, whoa, what am I walking into? Because it just looks like you're going to walk into a warehouse. And then it turns out there's a lot of natural light. And pre-COVID, there's a lot of people there and there's this good energy vibe. What we hope that you take away from visiting Rhinegeist is you feel cared for, you feel a human connection with the people that are serving your beer. You feel like we care enough about our beer to educate you on what you are drinking. And no matter who you are, I hope you feel comfortable and accepted and served. It's 80% of people that leave a brewery are more apt to buy that beer in the future. And there's tremendous upside where you could win a customer for life if you are just present and answer their questions. So we put ABV and IBU. We have a knowledgeable bar staff. Everyone's Cicerone trained, including my father, who's a tour guide, which that was a technological challenge for him to take an online test, but he nailed it. And that level of beer knowledge and the level of trying to really make customers get whatever they want, and elevating beer is what I hope you take away.
Yeah. Now, since you had just mentioned ABV, it's been probably for people who are not aware that there was a cap on ABV for about the longest time, and it finally got taken care of. I believe it was in 2016, but it wasn't signed until 2017. So there was the cap where a beer in Ohio could not be more than 12%. Which I guess for some people's reference, I think I probably hopefully did the calculations right, but about a 16-ounce beer at 12% is probably a little over 3.5 Budweisers, something maybe in that area. So since that cap's been removed, I saw on the site that you guys have had roughly around 7 or 8 beers at or above 12%. One of the things I also noticed was that obviously you guys have been opened prior to the cap being removed, almost 4 years before that cap was taken off. Do you see the necessity of making these higher ABV beers going forward? Or is it that with everything that you have now that has created the popularity that you've already had, and maybe the downward trend of high ABVs, coming in, that it's not really needed?
So the question, if I'm hearing it correctly, is would a 12% cap matter? Do we really need to brew beers more than 12%?
Yes. Do you really need that 12% cap, considering I would say the consistency of the beers that you've had, that you haven't had a lot that were even going over that 12%?
Yeah, it was never, a 12% beer that'll get you there. You sneak one of those into the movie, you're good. I'm not saying you should do that, or that I have, but it was enjoyable. We never felt like it was a major impediment to our creativity. And yet we've got a relationship with New Riff, a distillery that was built right in the same parking lot as the Party Source. The owner of the Party Source sold off the Party Source itself in an ESOP to the employees, and then opened up, because he couldn't own both, opened up a distillery called New Riff. And they're making amazing bourbon and rye and whiskeys. So we get barrels very fresh with them. Our barrel program has evolved since the early days, where we were just like taking whatever we could get and putting beer in wood and seeing what would happen, to beers that I feel like are best in class. And that's what our goal is. Double Oak Macedon is a Belgian strong ale that we brew in and age in bourbon for 12 months and then wine barrels in 6 months. And it's been different wine barrels each year. But it's a significantly fruity and sweet vanilla toasted oak, and also all of the esters from the Belgian yeast come through. It's a wildly delicious beer. So I would say that we feel proud of the evolution of our barrel aging program. And without that 12% cap, we're just letting beer evolve as we see it fit. We brew a beer called Night Whale, which is 15+%. You get these amazing umami in the direction of like anise and soy sauce, but not in a bad way. So the complexity I think you can achieve with those higher fermentations, they're always challenging to pull off, is interesting, but we don't do them in, we're not doing 100 barrels at a time. We're doing 20 barrels at a time, and we're yielding 10. So I don't know, rules should be there for good reason. When you can go out and buy vodka for $10 for a handle, but you can't drink beer more than 12%, that's where I have a philosophical problem with it. But it was never something that we were pushing hard for. It's just now something that, we can do it now. Well, let's do it. We can compete there. Let's compete there. That's kind of our angle. We're competitive like that.
Yeah.
Well, Bryant, if you don't mind, I'm going to have us take a quick 5-minute break, refill our beers, and I think we have a lot more that I want to talk to you about, but I kind of want to, pause it if you don't mind. Do you have the time?
Yeah.
He shakes his head no, but he says yes. I appreciate the guy.
Yeah, no, I got nothing going. I'm good. My wife is off.
All right, we are going to be right back with the Better on Draft podcast.